How Earth's Class 13 status shocked the intergalactic community. Part 1: First Contact. The survey ship Gentle Dawn moved slowly through the empty space at the edge of the Sol system. It was a small ship, built for science and not for war. The crew of 12 had spent the last 40 cycles jumping from star to star, looking at planets and writing reports that nobody would read for years. Commander floated near the main viewing screen, his soft gray body relaxed inside his gel suit. He was a species known for their gentle nature and their hatred of conflict. His people had joined the Galactic Federation 800 cycles ago, and they had never regretted it. The Federation was peaceful. The Federation was safe. The Federation had rules that kept everyone happy. "Beginning scan of the third planet," announced Pilot, her 4 arms moving across the control panels. She was an insect-like species with hard shells and quick minds. Standard procedure. Should take about 1 hour. Nodded his round head. They had done this same thing hundreds of times. Most planets were dead rocks. Some had simple life like bacteria or plants. A few had animals. Almost none had intelligent life. The galaxy was big and mostly empty. The scanner hummed as it worked. Thought about what he would eat for dinner. Maybe some nutrient paste with extra minerals. He was getting old and his body needed more care these days. Then the scanner made a sound he had never heard before. Sat up straight, her wings buzzed with surprise. "Commander, there is an error in the system." "What kind of error?" "The planet classification. It cannot be correct." Touched more buttons. "The scanner says the planet has intelligent life, space-faring civilization. They have satellites and radio signals and nuclear power." Felt his body tighten inside his suit. Intelligent life was rare. Space-faring life was even more rare. This was an important discovery. "Show me the environmental data." The screen changed to show numbers and charts. Looked at them. Then he looked again. Then he felt his heart begin to beat too fast. "This is wrong," he said. "Run the scan again." Ran the scan again. The numbers stayed the same. The third planet had an atmosphere made of oxygen and nitrogen. Oxygen was a corrosive gas that burned and destroyed. The temperature on the surface changed by as much as 100 degrees between seasons. The planet had massive storms that shot electricity from the sky. The ground shook regularly with earthquakes. A large moon pulled at the planet's waters and created dangerous tides. Radiation from the local star bombarded the surface constantly. And the life. The planet was covered with life. Millions of species of life. Plants and animals and tiny organisms, all fighting each other, eating each other, killing each other in an endless war for survival. "What is the classification?" asked, though he was afraid to know. Checked 3 times before answering. "Class 13, Commander." Spilled his nutrient drink. It floated away in little gray drops, but he did not notice. Class 13. The highest rating. The deadliest classification possible. A planet so hostile that no intelligent life should ever evolve there. In the entire history of the Federation, no Class 13 world had ever produced anything more complex than fungus. Until now. "Send a message to Federation headquarters," said. His voice was shaking. "Priority 1, emergency coding. Tell them we have found something impossible." The message traveled across space at faster-than-light speeds. It reached the Federation capital planet of in just 3 days. Within hours, the entire council had read it. Within a day, panic had spread across 12 star systems. Was one of the first scientists to receive the full data package. She was which meant she studied alien life forms. She had spent 200 cycles learning about how life evolved on different planets. She thought she understood the rules. She sat in her laboratory with her research partner, a young male named, and they looked at the data together. "It must be fake," said. "Someone is playing a joke." "The Gentle Dawn would not send a joke on emergency coding," replied. "They would lose their survey license." Then the equipment is broken. All of it at the same time, giving the same wrong readings. Was quiet, he had no answer. Pulled up the electromagnetic recordings, radio waves from the planet. She let the computer translate them into something understandable. Music, they were hearing music. Strange rhythms and sounds that made no sense, but were clearly made by thinking beings with culture and emotion. Then voices, creatures talking to each other in languages the computer could not understand yet. Hundreds of languages, thousands of different voices. "They are real," said softly. "They are really there, living on a Class 13 world." The Federation Council called an emergency meeting. Leaders from 30 different species came together in the Great Hall, all of them scared and confused. How could this be? What did it mean? High Chancellor, an ancient being made of living crystal, spoke first. "We must approach carefully. If these creatures have survived such a world, they may be extremely dangerous. They may be violent. They may be hostile. We should observe them from far away," suggested another leader. "Study them without making contact." "For how long?" asked a third. "They already have space travel. They will find us eventually." The debate went on for hours. Some wanted to hide. Some wanted to prepare for war. Some wanted to make friends quickly before the humans became too powerful. In the end, they decided to make contact. They would send ambassadors. They would be careful and slow and respectful. And they would hope with all their hearts that the creatures of this impossible were not as terrifying as their planet suggested. Back on the gentle dawn, Commander continued to watch the planet called Earth. He watched the lights on the night side, showing huge cities. He watched ships moving through the water and aircraft moving through the air. He watched satellites spinning around the planet like loyal pets. And he wondered what kind of beings could look at such a deadly world and say, "Yes, this is home." The answer, he suspected, would change everything the Federation thought they knew about life in the universe. He was right. How Earth's Class 13 status shocked the intergalactic community. Part 2. The Delegation. Ambassador had survived many dangerous things in his long life. He had lived through a mining accident on a Class 7 planet. He had negotiated peace between two species that had been at war for 300 cycles. He had eaten spoiled food on a diplomatic mission and nearly died from the poison. But nothing had prepared him for Earth. The shuttle descended through the atmosphere and watched through the window with all 6 of his eyes. Clouds. Actual clouds of water vapor, moving and changing shape like living things. Below them, he could see blue oceans that covered most of the planet. The scientists had told him those oceans were filled with salt and creatures that could kill in 100 different ways. "We are approaching the landing site," the pilot announced. "A city called Seoul in a region called Korea." Checked his environmental suit for the 10th time. It was the strongest suit Federation technology could make. Triple-layered protection against radiation. Filters for the toxic oxygen atmosphere. Temperature control for the extreme heat. He wore it like armor because on this planet he needed armor just to breathe. The shuttle landed on a wide platform near a tall building made of glass and metal. Saw humans waiting for them. He had seen pictures, but pictures did not capture how strange they looked. 2 arms, 2 legs, soft skin with no shell or scales to protect them. They stood in the open air under the burning sun with no suits and no protection at all. How were they not dead? Walked down the ramp slowly. Even with his suit, he could feel the planet trying to kill him. The gravity was heavy, pulling at his body. The air was thick and wrong. Somewhere in the distance, he heard a loud noise that his translator called traffic. A human female walked forward to meet him. She was wearing simple clothes in dark colors and her hair was black and cut short. She smiled at him, showing her teeth. Almost ran back to the shuttle. Showing teeth was a threat display on most planets, but his training told him to stay calm. Humans showed teeth when they were happy. It was a greeting, not a warning. "Welcome to Earth," the female said. Her voice was translated through his earpiece. I will be your guide during your visit." "I am Ambassador," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "The Galactic Federation thanks you for receiving us." Introduce the others. There was a male with broad shoulders who worked with the military. He smiled often and made jokes that did not understand. There was a younger female who spoke Federation standards so well that forgot she had only been learning it for 6 weeks. 6 weeks, repeated when she told him. "That is not possible. Our scholars need 3 cycles to learn a new language properly." Laughed softly. "We have had practice learning quickly. Humans speak many different languages on Earth. Most of us learn 2 or 3 when we are children." This information disturbed more than he wanted to admit. A species that could learn so fast was a species that could adapt to anything. The tour began. They showed him the city first. Seoul was enormous, filled with millions of humans living close together. Buildings reached toward the sky like metal trees. Vehicles moved through the streets in endless streams. People walked everywhere, going about their lives as if this deadly planet was perfectly normal. They took him to a restaurant. Could not eat human food, of course, but they wanted to show him their culture. He watched in horror as humans put red paste on their food and ate it with obvious pleasure. "What is that substance?" he asked. "Kimchi," said. "It is fermented vegetables with spices. The red color comes from a type of pepper." "Pepper?" "A plant that contains capsaicin. It causes a burning sensation on the tongue." "Felt sick? It causes pain, and you eat it on purpose." "We enjoy it," said, taking another bite. "The burn feels good after you get used to it." These creatures were insane. Later they visited a place called a zoo, expected to see small, harmless animals. Instead, he saw predators. Large cats with teeth like knives, bears that could tear metal with their claws, wolves that hunted in groups and never gave up. "We keep them as attractions," explained. "People come to look at them and learn about nature. You put dangerous predators in the middle of your city for entertainment. They cannot escape. The enclosures are secure." Did not feel secure. He felt like he was walking through a nightmare. Then the ground shook. It was sudden and violent. The floor moved beneath his feet and he fell down, screaming. His suit's alarms went off. Warning lights flashed. He was certain he was about to die. When it stopped, he looked up. The humans were still standing. They had not even paused their conversation. "What was that?" demanded. "An attack, an explosion." "Earthquake," said calmly. "A small one, maybe 4.2 magnitude, nothing serious." Nothing serious. The ground moved. Help stand up. He was still smiling. "This happens often here. Korea is not even the most earthquake-prone region. You should visit Japan sometime." Did not want to visit Japan. Wanted to go home. The tour continued for 3 more days. Saw humans swimming in the ocean with sharks nearby. He saw them climbing mountains covered in ice. He saw them running for exercise, pushing their bodies until they collapsed from exhaustion, and then doing it again the next day. He learned that humans needed to sleep every day, but often chose not to. He learned they could survive for weeks without food and days without water. He learned their bodies could heal from injuries that would kill any Federation species. And he learned that they kept small predators in their homes as pets. Animals with claws and teeth, treated like family members. One human showed him pictures of her cat sleeping on her face while she slept. "It could kill you," said. "She would never hurt me," the human replied. "She loves me." Love, they loved the predators. They loved their deadly planet. They loved the challenges that should have destroyed them. When returned to the Federation, his report was 3 words long. "They are terrifying." But what he did not write, what he was not sure how to explain, was that they were also kind. They had been patient with his fear. They had answered his questions without laughing at him. They had tried their best to make him comfortable. Perhaps that was the most terrifying thing of all. They did not see themselves as monsters. They saw themselves as ordinary. The deadliest creatures in the galaxy thought they were normal. And maybe thought that was exactly what made them so dangerous. How Earth's Class 13 status shocked the intergalactic community. Part 3: The Revelation. Dr. Myra had read every report about humans at least 5 times. She had watched every recording. She had studied every piece of data the Federation had collected, but nothing could prepare her for actually meeting them. She arrived at the Seoul Xenobiology Institute on a cool morning. The sky was gray with clouds, and water fell from above in small drops. Rain, the humans called it. On her home planet of water came from underground wells. It never fell from the sky. The idea that a planet could throw water at you seemed almost cruel. Her guide was a human scientist named. He was middle-aged with gray hair starting to show at his temples. He wore a white coat and carried a device he called a tablet that held all his research notes. He smiled when he saw her struggling with her umbrella. "You will get used to the rain," he said kindly. "It is actually quite gentle today." "This is gentle. Sometimes it falls much harder, and sometimes it freezes into ice as it falls. We call that hail." Myra added, ice falling from sky, to her growing list of reasons why Earth was terrifying. The institute was a large building filled with laboratories and research rooms, had been assigned to help Myra understand human biology. The Federation Science Council wanted answers. How had humans evolved on such a deadly world? What made them different from every other species? They started with the basics. "Humans are what we call persistence predators," explained, showing her images on a large screen. "Long ago, before we had technology, our ancestors hunted by chasing animals until they collapsed from exhaustion." Myra blinked her 3 eyes. "You chased them, not ambushed them, not trapped them." "We chased them, sometimes for hours, sometimes for entire days." "But that would be incredibly tiring." "Yes, but humans can keep moving longer than almost any other animal on Earth," touched his forehead. "We have a cooling system, sweat glands. Our bodies release water through our skin, and when it evaporates, it cools us down. Other animals cannot do this as well. They overheat and have to stop. We do not." Myra thought about this. On her planet, the dominant predators were fast and deadly, but they could only attack in short bursts. If prey escaped the first strike, it was safe. Humans were different. For humans, the hunt never ended. They would follow you forever, walking steadily toward you, never stopping, never resting, until you simply could not run anymore. It was the most horrifying hunting method she had ever heard of. "What about injuries?" she asked. "Your bodies are soft, no shells, no scales." Nodded, "We are fragile in some ways, but we heal." He rolled up his sleeve and showed her a long scar on his arm. "I got this when I was young. A bicycle accident. The bone broke and came through the skin." Myra felt nauseous. "And you survived." "The doctors put the bone back and closed the wound. 6 weeks later, I was using the arm normally again." "Your bones heal themselves." "All our bones do, and our skin, and most of our organs. We can lose a kidney and live with just one. We can lose part of our liver and it will grow back. We can lose limbs and survive." Myra's tablet fell from her tentacles. She did not pick it up. Continued. He told her about the human immune system, an army of cells that constantly fought against invaders. Bacteria, viruses, parasites. Every moment of every day, humans were at war with millions of tiny creatures trying to kill them. They had been fighting this war since birth. Their bodies had become incredibly good at it. He told her about human adaptability. Humans lived in frozen wastelands and burning deserts. They lived on mountains so high the air was thin, and in valleys so low the pressure was crushing. They lived on the water, under the water, and in the air. There was no environment on Earth that humans had not found a way to survive in. But why, Myra asked. Why not just stay in one safe place? Laughed softly. It was not a mean laugh. It was the laugh of someone who understood a secret. There is no safe place on Earth. There never has been. Ice ages came and covered the land. Earthquakes destroyed our cities. Diseases killed millions of us. Volcanoes erupted. Asteroids fell. Every time we thought we were safe, something new tried to kill us. He pulled up images of human history. Wars, plagues, famines, natural disasters, an endless list of catastrophes that should have ended the species. This is my country's history, said, showing her images of Korea. Invasions from neighbors, occupation by foreign powers, war that split our peninsula in two, poverty that seemed impossible to escape. How did you survive? We learned, we adapted, we grew stronger. He showed her images of modern Korea, shining cities, advanced technology, a culture that had spread across the world. 60 years ago, we were one of the nations on Earth. Now we are one of the most advanced. Hardship did not break us. It taught us. Myra understood now. She finally understood. Earth was not a planet that had failed to kill its intelligent species. Earth was a training ground. Every disaster, every predator, every disease, every challenge had been a lesson, and humans had learned every lesson perfectly. They were not survivors despite their world. They were survivors because of their world. There is something else, said, something you should know. What? We do not just survive alone, we survive together. He showed her images of humans helping each other, strangers carrying each other through floods, neighbors sharing food during famines, entire nations sending aid to countries on the other side of the planet. When disaster comes, humans work together. We protect our families, yes, but we also protect strangers. We even protect animals and plants. We feel responsible for things that cannot protect themselves. Myra thought about this. In the Federation, most species cared only for their own kind. Cooperation between species was possible, but it was based on trade and mutual benefit. Humans seemed to care simply because they cared. Why, she asked. Was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because we know what it means to suffer. We know what it means to be afraid and alone. We know how it feels when the world is trying to destroy you and you have no hope. He looked at her with a strange, two-eyed face. We would not wish that feeling on anyone, not even our enemies. Myra published her research 3 weeks later. It spread across the Federation like wildfire. The Science Council held emergency meetings. Military leaders demanded new weapons. Diplomats argued about what to do. But the common citizens had a different reaction. They were scared, yes, but they were also curious. They wanted to meet these impossible creatures who had turned hell into a home. And slowly, very slowly, the fear began to change into something else. Something like respect. How Earth's Class 13 status shocked the intergalactic community. Part 4, The Test. The hegemony of did not like humans. They had ruled their section of the galaxy for 500 cycles through strength and fear. Other species obeyed them because they were powerful warriors with advanced weapons. No one challenged no one dared. Then the humans arrived. They watched the reports from Earth with growing anger. These soft, fragile creatures were being treated like equals by the Federation. Scientists studied them with fascination. Diplomats spoke to them with respect. Some species even seemed to admire them. This was unacceptable. Lord Commander called a meeting of the Hegemony Council. He was a massive, covered in thick scales and armed with claws that could cut through metal. His red eyes burned with hatred as he spoke. These humans are a threat to our power, he declared. The Federation sees them as special, unique. If we do not act, they will become more important than us. What do you suggest? Asked one of his advisors. A test, a challenge. We will expose them as the weak creatures they really are. They proposed a joint survival exercise to the Federation Council. They claimed it was a way to build trust between species. They suggested using a planet called 442b, a Class 8 with extreme conditions. The best warriors from the would compete against a human team. The Federation, eager to reduce tensions, agreed. Earth selected 5 people for the mission. The team leader was a former Special Forces soldier with 15 years of experience in survival training. The medic was a doctor who had worked in disaster zones around the world. The engineer was Minu, a genius who could build useful tools from anything. The navigator was who had climbed the 7 highest mountains on Earth. And the survivalist was a man who had once spent 2 years living alone in the wilderness just to prove he could. They were not the biggest humans, they were not the strongest, but they were smart, adaptable, and experienced. They knew how to survive. They sent their chosen guard, elite warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds. There were 10 of them, each one trained since birth for combat. They carried the best weapons and wore the best armor. They were confident they would destroy the humans. Both teams landed on 442b at sunset. The rules were simple: survive for 72 hours. The team with more survivors at the end would be declared the winner. The planet was hostile in every way. The temperature dropped rapidly at night, falling far below freezing. The atmosphere was thin and hard to breathe. Strange plants covered the ground, some of them poisonous and some of them carnivorous. Predators moved through the darkness, hunting anything that made noise. They immediately spread out to establish dominance. They were warriors. They would hunt the predators and show their strength. They moved loudly through the alien forest, weapons ready, looking for something to kill. The humans did something different. "We find shelter first," said quietly. "Then water, then food. We stay together and we stay quiet." They found a small cave in a rocky hillside. Minu checked it for dangerous animals and toxic gases. When it was clear, they moved inside, used her navigation skills to map the surrounding area, identified which plants were safe to eat by testing small amounts on his skin first. Within 3 hours, the humans had a defensible camp, a source of clean water, and enough food for 2 days. They were having problems. They had underestimated the predators. On their home world, they were the top of the food chain. Here, they were not. Strange creatures with too many legs and too many teeth attacked them from the darkness. They killed some, but there were always more. By midnight, 3 warriors were dead. 2 more were badly injured. Their leader, sub-commander, was beginning to panic. "Fall back," he ordered. "Regroup at the landing site." But the landing site was far away and the predators were everywhere. They stumbled through the darkness, lost and afraid. Their advanced weapons ran out of power. Their armor was damaged. They were not trained for this kind of survival. They were trained to conquer, not to endure. Just before dawn, the remaining saw lights in the distance. A fire. Someone had made a fire. They approached carefully, expecting an enemy. Instead, they found the human camp. Saw them coming. He could have hidden. He could have let the predators finish them off. There were enemies who had come to humiliate his species. Letting them die would solve many problems. Instead, he stood up and waved them closer. "Come inside," he said, "quickly before the night hunters find you." Stared at him. There were only 5 left and all of them were injured. Pride told him to refuse. Pride told him he would rather die than accept help from these weak creatures. But pride could not stop the bleeding from his wounds. Pride could not protect him from the things in the darkness. He led his warriors into the human camp. Immediately began treating their injuries. She did not speak their language well, but medicine needed no words. She cleaned wounds and applied bandages. She gave them water and food. She worked for hours without rest, treating enemies as if they were friends. "Why are you doing this?" demanded. "We came here to defeat you, to prove you are weak. We are your enemies." Looked at him calmly. You were dying. That does not answer my question. Yes, it does. Did not understand. In culture, enemies were destroyed. Mercy was weakness. Compassion was foolishness. You did not help those who wanted to hurt you. That was the way of the strong. But watching the human doctor save his warriors' lives, began to wonder if strength meant something different than he had always believed. The 72 hours ended. Federation observers arrived to count survivors. All 5 humans were alive and healthy. 5 remained, alive only because of human help. By the rules, it was a tie, but everyone knew the truth. The humans had won completely. The footage from the exercise spread across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched the stumble into the human camp. They watched the human doctor treat their wounds. They watched humans share food with enemies who had come to destroy them. The galaxy had expected to see human savagery. They had expected proof that survivors were dangerous beasts who should be feared. Instead, they saw something far more powerful. They saw kindness. Lord Commander raged when he saw the footage. He called the surviving warriors traitors and cowards. He demanded they be executed for accepting human help. But the common people saw something else. They saw humans who were strong enough to kill their enemies but chose to save them instead. They saw power combined with mercy. They saw a different way to be strong. For the first time in 500 cycles, they began to question their leaders. And across the galaxy, species who had feared the humans began to hope. Perhaps these survivors were not monsters after all. Perhaps they were something better. Perhaps they were exactly what the galaxy needed. How Earth's Class 13 status shocked the intergalactic community. Part 5: The New Galaxy. 5 cycles had passed since humans first met the Galactic Federation. In that time, everything had changed. Ambassador stood at the window of her office looking out at the capital city. When she had first arrived here, the streets had emptied whenever she walked through them. Aliens had hidden in their homes, terrified of the creature in their midst. Children had cried when they saw her face. Now those same streets were filled with humans and aliens walking together. A group of young waved at her as they passed, their gray bodies wobbling with excitement. She waved back, smiling. It had not been easy. Fear does not disappear quickly, but humans had done what humans always did. They had adapted. They had persisted. They had refused to give up. Human engineers now worked on space stations throughout Federation territory. They solved problems that had frustrated alien scientists for centuries. Where other species saw obstacles, humans saw challenges. Where others gave up, humans tried again. Minyu, the engineer from the survival mission, had designed a new type of radiation shield that protected ships better than anything before. He had got the idea from watching how Korean farmers built greenhouses to protect plants from harsh winters. Simple solutions to complex problems. That was the human way. Human doctors had revolutionized Federation medicine. They had experience with diseases and injuries that most species never faced. Dr. Now ran a medical training program that taught alien doctors techniques humans had developed over thousands of years of treating each other's wounds. Her students came from 30 different species. Human artists created works that moved beings who had never known emotion. Musicians played sounds that made ancient crystalline species vibrate with feelings they could not name. Writers told stories of struggle and hope that resonated across all cultures. Painters showed visions of beauty that transcended language and form. But perhaps the greatest change was in how the galaxy saw itself. Before humans, the Federation had been a place of rules and caution. Species stayed in their own territories. Contact was formal and limited. Trust was rare. The hegemony had bullied smaller species because no one believed they could be stopped. Humans changed that. They formed friendships with anyone who was willing. They shared technology without demanding payment. They helped species that had nothing to offer in return. When disaster struck a small colony on the edge of Federation space, humans organized the rescue mission. When a plague threatened a world, human doctors volunteered to help, even though the disease was dangerous to them too. "Why do you help others so much?" aliens often asked. The answer was always the same. Because we can, because someone should, because that is who we want to be. The hegemony of had collapsed 2 cycles after the survival exercise. Lord Commander had tried to start a war, but his own people refused to follow him. They had seen another way. They had seen that strength did not require cruelty. The new government asked to join the Federation as equal members, not conquerors. Today was the 5th anniversary of First Contact. The Federation Council had organized a special ceremony in the Great Hall. Representatives from every member species filled the massive chamber. Holographic projectors broadcast the event to trillions of viewers across the galaxy. Ambassador walked to the central platform. She was older now, with gray in her hair and lines around her eyes, but she stood straight and spoke clearly. 5 cycles ago, your survey ship discovered Earth. You classified it as a Class 13, the highest rating ever given. You expected the beings who lived there to be monsters, savage creatures forged in violence and death. She paused and looked across the assembly. She saw diplomats and traders. She saw the crystalline forms of ancient beings and the soft bodies of young species just beginning their journey to the stars. She saw former enemies and new friends. "You were afraid of us," she continued. "And I understand why. Our world is dangerous. We are dangerous. We can endure pain that would kill you. We can survive disasters that would end your civilizations. We heal from wounds that would leave your species crippled forever." Silence filled the hall. "But you misunderstood what Earth taught us." Thought about her own life. She had grown up in a small town in Korea, the daughter of farmers who worked hard every day just to survive. She had studied by candlelight during power outages. She had walked through floods to get to school. She had watched her country transform from poverty to prosperity through sheer determination. Yes, our planet tried to kill us. Every day, in countless ways, Earth tested our right to exist. We learned to fight, certainly. We learned to survive. But more importantly, we learned that survival means nothing without something worth surviving for. In the gallery, Dr. Myra listened with tears streaming down her face. Beside her sat Doctor, who had traveled from Earth just for this ceremony. He took her tentacle in his hand, a gesture of friendship that would have seemed impossible 5 cycles ago. "We learned to protect each other," said. "Families, friends, strangers, it did not matter. When danger came, we faced it together. We learned to love fiercely because life was short and precious. We learned that the universe is vast and cold and uncaring, and that the only warmth to be found is the warmth we create together." She looked at the delegation. Their new leader, a female named who had replaced after his fall, met her eyes without hostility. That alone was a miracle. "We are not here to conquer you. We are not here to dominate or control. We are here because we have spent our entire existence fighting against a hostile universe, and we are tired of fighting alone." Ambassador raised her hand, palm open, showing she held no weapon. The gesture had become known throughout the galaxy as the human greeting of peace. Earth did not create destroyers, it created survivors. And survivors, more than anyone, understand the value of life, every life, including the lives of those who feared us, including the lives of those who tried to hurt us, including the lives of beings we have never met and may never meet. The hall was completely silent. Trillions of beings across the galaxy held their breath. "We choose kindness, not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to choose it. Not because we cannot fight, but because we know that fighting alone leads only to more fighting. We offer our hands in friendship. We offer our strength in protection. We offer our hearts in hope." She smiled, and this time, no one was afraid of her teeth. "We are humans. We are survivors. and we would be honored to survive alongside you." The applause began slowly, then grew until it shook the foundations of the Great Hall. Species that had never agreed on anything cheered together. Former enemies embraced. Tears fell from eyes that had never cried before. In the back of the hall, Commander watched with wonder. He had been the first to discover Earth. He had been the first to fear humans. Now, watching the celebration around him, he finally understood what made them special. It was not their strength or their endurance. It was not their ability to heal or adapt. It was their refusal to become what the universe tried to make them. Their planet had been cruel, so they chose kindness. Their world had been dangerous, so they chose protection. Their existence had been a constant struggle, so they chose hope. They had looked at the cold, uncaring void and decided to fill it with warmth. That was the true miracle of humanity. And that was why, despite everything, the galaxy was better for having found them.